My girlfriend said, "I don't love you anymore. Get out of my house." I replied, "Okay." Then my lawyer sent her an invoice for the $50,000 in renovations I did on her home. She was left frantically screaming on the phone that I was suing her. I, 31M, thought I had found the love of my life when I met my girlfriend 3 years ago. She owned this beautiful but completely outdated house in a decent neighborhood, and from day one, she made it clear how much she hated living there. The kitchen was stuck in the 1980s, the bathroom had avocado green tiles, and the living room looked like a time capsule nobody wanted to open. Being a contractor by trade, I saw potential where she saw problems. 6 months into our relationship, I moved in and immediately started planning renovations. She was thrilled when I offered to update everything, especially when I told her I'd cover all the costs as my contribution to our shared future. Looking back, I should have insisted on a written agreement, but love makes you stupid sometimes. The kitchen renovation alone cost me $15,000. I ripped out those ancient cabinets, installed custom maple ones, put in granite countertops, and upgraded all the appliances to stainless steel. The transformation was incredible, and watching her face light up when she saw the finished result made every penny feel worth it. The bathroom project followed 6 months later. Another $12,000 went into tearing out that hideous green tile, installing a walk-in shower with glass doors, putting in a double vanity, and adding heated floors. She posted pictures on social media constantly, showing off what she called her dream bathroom to anyone who would look. But I wasn't done yet. The living room needed work, so I knocked out a wall to create an open concept, installed hardwood floors throughout the main level, and built custom shelving units. The basement got finished with a home theater setup, complete with surround sound and a wet bar. Every weekend for 2 years, I poured my time, money, and energy into making that house perfect. My friends started making jokes about how I was working myself to death for someone else's house, but I brushed them off. We were building a life together, and investments in our shared space felt natural. She never once offered to help financially, claiming she was saving for our future wedding, though I never saw evidence of any actual savings. The red flags started appearing about 8 months ago. She became distant, spending more time on her phone and less time appreciating all the work I'd done. When I suggested we make our arrangement official by adding my name to the deed, she deflected, saying we didn't need paperwork to prove our love. I thought she was being romantic, but something in her tone felt off. Then came the late nights at work that stretched longer and longer. She claimed her boss was demanding overtime, but her stories never quite added up. Friends started mentioning they'd seen her car at restaurants and bars when she was supposedly working late. I wanted to trust her, so I convinced myself they were mistaken. 3 weeks ago, everything came crashing down. I came home early from a job site to find her car in the driveway alongside one I didn't recognize. The front door was locked, which was unusual since I lived there too. I used my key and walked into the living room I'd completely renovated to find her on the couch with someone I'd never seen before. The confrontation was brief and brutal. She didn't even try to explain or apologize. Instead, she immediately went on the offensive, screaming about how I had no right to just walk into her house unannounced. Her house. After 3 years of living there and 2 years of pouring my life savings into improvements, she called it her house. The guy she was with had the decency to look embarrassed and left quickly, but she showed no shame whatsoever. She told me this had been going on for months and that she'd been trying to figure out how to end things with me. Apparently, my walking in had solved that problem for her. When I asked about everything I'd invested in the house, she laughed. Actually laughed. She said I'd chosen to do those renovations as gifts, and gifts couldn't be taken back. The legal implications of what she was saying hit me immediately, but I was too shocked and hurt to argue in that moment. The next morning, she delivered the final blow. She told me she didn't love me anymore and wanted me out of her house immediately. She said I had until the weekend to pack my things and leave. No discussion, no attempt to work things out, just a cold dismissal after 3 years together. I looked at her standing in that beautiful kitchen I'd built, surrounded by the custom cabinets I'd installed with my own hands, and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but it was being replaced by something much more focused. I told her okay, that I'd be gone by Friday. She seemed surprised by how easily I accepted her decision, but I wasn't about to beg someone who clearly had no respect for me or everything I'd given her. Instead, I spent the next few days quietly documenting everything I'd done to that house. Every receipt, every before and after photo, every permit I'd pulled for the electrical and plumbing work. I also made some phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, explaining the situation and asking about my options. The second was to a contractor friend who specialized in home appraisals. I needed to know exactly how much value I'd added to her property. The numbers were staggering. The house had been worth maybe $180,000 when I moved in. After all my improvements, it was now appraised at $270,000. I had single-handedly increased her home's value by $90,000, and that didn't even account for the money I'd spent on materials and labor. My lawyer was fascinated by the case. Apparently, there's something called unjust enrichment in contract law, and my situation was a textbook example. When someone benefits from improvements made to their property without compensating the person who made those improvements, they can be held liable for the value added. The key was proving that the improvements were made with the expectation of shared benefit, not as gifts. Fortunately, I had plenty of evidence. Text messages where she talked about our future in the house, social media posts where she referred to it as our home, and testimony from friends who heard her discuss our plans together. Friday came, and I packed my things as promised. She watched from the kitchen window as I loaded my truck, probably feeling pretty pleased with herself for getting rid of me so cleanly. She had no idea what was coming. The following Monday, my lawyer sent her a formal demand letter. The invoice was itemized and thorough. Kitchen renovation, bathroom remodel, flooring installation, basement finishing, electrical upgrades, plumbing improvements, and general construction costs. The total came to $52,000, which was actually conservative since I'd done most of the labor myself and only charged for materials and permits. Her response was immediate and furious. She called me screaming about how I was trying to sue her for gifts I'd given freely. She claimed I was being vindictive and threatened to get her own lawyer. I stayed calm and told her my lawyer was handling everything now, and she should direct all communication through proper legal channels. What followed was 2 weeks of increasingly desperate phone calls. At first, she was angry, demanding to know how I could do this to someone I'd claimed to love. Then she tried guilt, reminding me of all the good times we'd shared and how I was ruining those memories with my greed. When those tactics failed, she moved on to bargaining. She offered to pay me back gradually, maybe a few $100s a month until the debt was cleared. My lawyer advised against any payment plan, explaining that accepting partial payment might undermine our legal position. The breakthrough came when she tried to refinance the house to pay me off and discovered she couldn't get approved for the amount she needed. The bank's appraisal confirmed what I already knew. The house was worth significantly more than her original mortgage, but she didn't have enough income to qualify for a loan that would cover both her existing mortgage and my claim. That's when panic set in. She called crying, explaining that she might lose the house if she couldn't figure out how to pay me. She begged me to reconsider, promising she'd pay me back somehow if I'd just drop the lawsuit. Her family got involved next. Her sister called to tell me I was being unreasonable and that no decent man would try to take a woman's house away from her. Her mother left voicemails about how disappointed she was in my behavior and how her daughter deserved better than someone who would turn love into a business transaction. The irony wasn't lost on me. These same people had watched me spend 2 years working weekends to improve their daughter's home, never once suggesting I was being taken advantage of. But now that I wanted fair compensation for my investment, I was the villain. My lawyer filed the official lawsuit 3 weeks after the demand letter went unanswered. The local news picked up the story, and suddenly everyone had an opinion about whether I was justified or just a bitter ex-boyfriend trying to get revenge. Some people understood my position completely. They saw it as a cautionary tale about the importance of protecting yourself financially in relationships. Others thought I was being petty and vindictive, using the legal system to hurt someone who'd already ended our relationship. The comments on social media were brutal on both sides. Supporters called me smart for not letting myself be taken advantage of, while critics labeled me everything from greedy to emotionally abusive. The attention was overwhelming, but I tried to stay focused on the legal facts rather than public opinion. Update 1. The case moved forward faster than expected. Her lawyer tried to argue that all improvements were gifts made freely during the course of our relationship, but our evidence was too strong. The text messages and social media posts clearly showed we'd discussed the renovations as investments in our shared future, not as one-sided gifts. Her financial situation became increasingly desperate. She'd already taken out a second mortgage to try to pay me off, but it wasn't enough to cover the full amount. The stress was clearly getting to her, and friends told me she'd lost weight and wasn't sleeping well. Part of me felt bad about what she was going through, but then I'd remember how coldly she'd dismissed me and how she'd laughed when I mentioned my investment in her house. She'd made it clear that my contributions meant nothing to her, so I couldn't let sympathy derail my pursuit of fair compensation. The mediation session was tense. She came with her lawyer and her sister for moral support, while I attended with just my legal representation. Her lawyer proposed a settlement of $25,000, arguing that some of the improvements would have benefited me during the time I lived there. My lawyer countered with $45,000, acknowledging that I had received some benefit from living in the improved space, but maintaining that the vast majority of the value increase should be compensated. The mediator seemed to think this was reasonable, but she rejected it immediately. She broke down crying during the session, claiming I was trying to destroy her life over a failed relationship. She accused me of being calculating and manipulative, saying I'd planned this revenge from the moment she asked me to leave. The truth was more complicated. I genuinely hadn't thought about legal recourse until she laughed at my contributions and dismissed them as freely given gifts. Her complete lack of respect for everything I'd invested in our relationship and her home had triggered something in me that demanded justice. We left mediation without an agreement, meaning the case would go to trial. Her lawyer warned her that losing in court could mean paying not just my claim, but also legal fees for both sides. The financial pressure was mounting, and everyone could see it. Update 2. 2 days before the trial was scheduled to begin, she called me directly, violating her lawyer's instructions about going through proper channels. She was sobbing and begging me to find some way to resolve this without going to court. She admitted that she'd made a terrible mistake in how she'd handled our breakup and that she should have recognized my contributions to her home. She offered $35,000, claiming it was literally everything she could scrape together through loans and help from family members. I consulted with my lawyer, who advised that $35,000 was actually a reasonable settlement considering the costs and uncertainty of going to trial. We'd proven our case well, but judges can be unpredictable, and litigation expenses were mounting for both sides. After thinking about it for 24 hours, I agreed to the settlement. Not because I felt sorry for her, but because $35,000 represented fair compensation for most of my investment, and continuing to trial would be expensive and time-consuming. The settlement agreement was signed on a Friday afternoon in my lawyer's office. She looked exhausted and defeated, nothing like the confident woman who'd kicked me out of what she'd called her house just 2 months earlier. As we were leaving, she asked if I thought we could ever be friends again someday. I told her that friendship requires mutual respect, and her actions had shown she had none for me or my contributions to her life. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Update 3. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that she'd had to sell the house anyway. Apparently, the loans she'd taken out to pay me, combined with her existing mortgage, created monthly payments she couldn't sustain on her salary alone. The house sold for $265,000, confirming that my improvements had indeed added substantial value. After paying off her mortgages and loans, she walked away with barely enough for a down payment on a small condo across town. Meanwhile, I used the settlement money as a down payment on my own house, a fixer-upper with good bones and plenty of potential. This time, every improvement I make increases my own equity, and I'll never again invest my time and money in someone else's property without proper legal protection. Looking back, I don't regret pursuing the lawsuit. What she did was wrong, both morally and legally, and letting her get away with it would have been a disservice to myself and anyone else who might face a similar situation. The experience taught me valuable lessons about protecting myself financially in relationships and about the importance of getting agreements in writing, even with people you love and trust. Love might make us want to give freely, but smart people protect themselves while they're being generous. Some people still think I was wrong to pursue legal action against someone I'd once loved, but I disagree. Real love involves respect and fairness, neither of which she showed me when she kicked me out after benefiting from years of my work and investment. I've moved on with my life, found someone who appreciates both my skills and my generosity, and learned to establish clear boundaries from the beginning of relationships. Sometimes the hardest lessons teach us the most valuable truths about ourselves and what we're willing to accept from others. The whole experience was painful, but ultimately necessary. I got justice. She learned that actions have consequences, and hopefully, others can learn from our story about the importance of fairness and respect in relationships, even when they end.